What is going on, YouTube people? Northeast Ohio Cards and Comics here today for a little comic book investing 101. Got some books out on the table. I have a brand new pickup, which kind of inspired me to do this video. So we're going to talk about the pickup, the thought process behind it, and we are going to use that to talk about which grades you should target if you're looking at putting some money into the comic book market. So, like, comment, subscribe. That's what we're going to talk about today. I get this question a lot. What grades should I shoot for? A lot of my audience is used to the sports card market, PSA 10s, BGS 95s, PSA 9s, SGC 10s, this, that, the other thing. And when they cross over to comic books, it could be a little confusing. So let's start with the basics first. CGC 9.8 is basically the top grade. There is a 9.9, there is a 10.0. They are ridiculously rare. There are also different ages to comic books. Think of, ultra modern, modern, vintage when it comes to sports cards, junk wax era, that sort of thing. On the comic book side, there's golden age, which is usually the mid 30s to the mid 50s, silver age, which is the mid 50s to the 70s, bronze age, which is like the early 70s, 1970 to the mid 80s, and then the modern age, which is 85 to present day. I disagree with the last one a little bit. I feel like comic books needs an ultra modern category for like 2000 and up, but who am I? So I'm going to refer to 2000 and up as ultra modern. It's as simple as this. The newer you get, the higher the grade that you want. In my opinion, when I am looking, and once again, this is what I'm doing. It might not make sense for you. I'm not saying it's the correct thing to do. I'm just saying it's what makes sense for me. And kind of my breakdown on how I target stuff. So for anything modern or ultra modern, and I have some books out on the table, an ultra modern book, in my opinion, would be this. Edge of the Spider-Verse #2, first appearance of Spider-Gwen. This came out in 2014. You could also include Ultimate Fallout 4 and a bunch of others. I would consider this like an ultra modern. Anything post 2000, I consider ultra modern. Anything like this, I want a 9.8. The only exception might be an Ultimate Fallout 4 in a 9.6. You could drop down the 9.6. I definitely wouldn't go lower than 9.6 on these ultra modern books. I would stick to 9.8 as much as humanly possible. I get everyone has different price points. But me personally, if I'm going ultra modern, I want a 9.8. These things are highly printed. And the only ones that are probably going to hold a lot of long-term value are the CGC 9.8. So for ultra modern, I want a 9.8. Now, I also have New Mutants 98 on the desk. This came out in 1991. So technically, and this is why I don't like the modern designation on comic books, these two books are from the same age. I disagree with that a little bit. I think this is, I guess I would call this a modern book. Once again, this is an ultra modern book. Anything in modern, 85 and newer-ish, I also would want to go with a 9.8, but I'm a little more open to 9.6s because as you go backwards, the price points also get more expensive. For example, as of time of recording, this New Mutants 98 and a CGC 9.8 is about $1,800. An ASM 300, which would also fall into this category, that came out in, I believe, 1988 or 1989. CGC 9.8 of that book is $6,000. I would be perfectly fine with a 9.6 of that book. 9.6 does have a much higher census count on ASM 300, but those higher end books, when you get back into this era, I am okay going with 9.6s on because they will go up in tandem with the 9.8. If the 9.8 goes to the moon, the 9.6 is going to get drug along with it. It's obviously not going to have as high a ceiling. It might not go up as high percentage-wise, but you get the point. After modern age, we dip down into bronze, which is 70 to 85, give or take. Once again, this is kind of loosey-goosey. My example that I have for that is a later Bronze Age book. That is ASM 252, first appearance of the Black Suit, CGC 9.8. Once again, this one's going to vary a lot more depending on what you're talking about, because when you get back into the 70s, things get more expensive very quickly. Stuff on the more modern end, I would like to go more 9.8. Anything earlier, as you move backwards in time, I am perfectly fine with lower grade books. For example, this would include like a Hulk 181. There's a lot of big books that get jumped into the Bronze Age. Giant Size X-Men #1 is technically considered a Bronze Age book. Things like that we're going to talk about in a second when I dive into Silver Age specifically. I kind of have a little thing, and we're going to flip over to the CGC census. So I'm going to skip over Silver Age for a second and go back to Golden Age. Golden Age, I don't have any experience in. I've never bought a Golden Age book. I don't own a Golden Age book. And really, there's not a lot of Golden Age books on my radar. I am mostly a Marvel guy, and there's not a lot of Golden Age Marvel stuff that interests me. Most Marvel stuff is Silver Age. So my latest pickup and kind of what led me down this path is Fantastic Four #52. First appearance of Black Panther. I just got this in last week. Picked this up from A1 Comics on one of their live sales. This is a 6.5 white pages. Absolutely fantastic book. Blue chip key. Like, once again, first appearance of Black Panther. And this was not a book I was initially looking for, but the price point just seemed out of line with this. I had talked about an ASM 50 before. First appearance of Kingpin, classic Spider-Man cover. A 6.5 of that is going for about $2,500, give or take, at time of recording. First appearance of a villain usually doesn't outsell first appearance of a hero. Now, that one does have an iconic cover, and it is Spider-Man, so it's a little different. But the fact that a first appearance of Black Panther is a lot cheaper than other stuff right now, this just seemed like the smarter play. Part of the reason is all the eyes are on Spider-Man right now because we're just still post No Way Home. There's still a lot of X-Men buzz out there. Doctor Strange is coming. There's a lot of buzz on his stuff now. We just finished Hawkeye. There's buzz on that stuff. Whereas people kind of forget about stuff like this, like Black Panther. So I was perfectly fine to swoop in and snag one of these on what I thought was a pretty good price. Black Panther is not, it's a character that I like. I liked him a lot more after the movie, obviously, probably like a lot of people. This was just a play on, I just thought this was a really good time to get in on this. I could be wrong. I could 100% be wrong. Who the hell knows? I can't predict the future. But I just felt major key book, major character, and a pretty good grade. White pages, very clean looking, very good color. Seemed kind of like a no-brainer. Now, what really drew me to this was the 6.5 grade. And we're going to switch over to the CGC census here really quickly. And we're going to talk about my thought process behind this. When you're in the more modern stuff and the ultra modern stuff, it's pretty easy. It's 9.6, it's 9.8, in my opinion, or bust. Once you start dipping into the mid to early 80s and then you keep going backwards, that changes, in my opinion. Obviously, if you can afford a 9.8, go with the 9.8, but that's not possible for most people. Especially, this becomes more relevant when you go further back, like a Silver Age book like this. If you're looking at Silver Age X-Men, maybe like a first appearance of Scarlet Witch, X-Men #4. There's a billion different books that you could use as an example. First appearance of Silver Surfer, Fantastic Four 48. The list is endless. But when you get back that far, 9.8s really just don't exist. And unless you're sitting on oodles and oodles of money, you're not going to buy one. And sometimes you can't even find them anyways because the census counts are so low. You'll see that when we go look at this first appearance of Black Panther. So let's switch over. I'm going to cut off the desktop cam and we're going to pop over to the CGC census really quick. Okay, so we have the CGC census up here. I have this pulled up on Fantastic Four 52, the first appearance of Black Panther, like we were just discussing. And couple things. This is why I am very interested in moving more and more into comic books. The first appearance of Black Panther, there are only 4,900 on the CGC census in a blue label. We didn't talk about labels, but blue label is a universal label. It means that the book's not altered. They have different color labels depending on what's going on with the book. The fact that there's only 4,900 of these in a CGC blue label is just like, especially when you're coming over from sports cards and pop counts get higher and higher and higher. And once again, this is a little bit of a weird comparison because this is much more, Fantastic Four 52 is much more like a vintage sports card. You know, when you're looking at pop counts on a vintage sports card, this census count would be more comparable to that than modern. But 4,900 just seems like not a lot to me for the first appearance of Black Panther, a very popular character. And once again, I was talking earlier about high grades and this stuff. You can see in a CGC 9.8, there's only 5 of them. Like, good luck finding one, good luck affording one. So here's how I approach this. When I look at a book like this, whether it's a Fantastic Four 52, or I'm sorry, Fantastic Four 52, which we'll use for the purposes of this. So when I'm looking at older books like this, what I like to do is find the grade that has the highest number on the census. So in this case, it's 6.5. You can see there's 498 copies in a 6.5. There is no other grade that has a higher number than that on the CGC census at time that you're looking at this, obviously. Now, on modern books, ultra modern books, it's all going to be CGC 9.8 for the most part, with a little bit of 9.6s and then some other random ones mixed in. As you go back further, especially more into, the late 80s, early 90s, those numbers could still swing a little bit because there could still be a lot of them out there. But in general, I don't see it changing that much. And when you go back to something like this from the mid 60s, it's not like a bunch of these are going to get added to the census count anytime soon. So I feel pretty confident that this number will hold. And once again, this is just what I do. This might not make sense for you. There's no real science behind this other than this just feels right for me. So I find this number, and then this is the grade that I target, or anything higher if I can afford it. That's obviously a key caveat in this, but this is my starting point. When I dive in, this is the first thing that I look at. I look at a 6.5 for this particular book, Fantastic Four 52. And then I started taking in on price research. Okay, what does the 6.5 go for? Is that in a range that I feel comfortable paying? If yes, then maybe I'll look at the next grade up. Okay, what does 7s go for? Do I feel comfortable paying that? So on and so forth, until I reach a number that I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that anymore. Then I will begin my search. So I will set my parameters at 6.5 up to maybe a 7.5, or maybe just a 7.0, or maybe a 6.5 is my max price range. And then I will start looking for books for sale in that price range and try to find one that looks good. Now, eye appeal does matter. Comic books are very much like sports cards in regards to buy the book, not the grade. So I would like to find something that presents well, has good color, doesn't have any major markings on the cover, all that sorts of stuff are key factors to look at, especially when you're looking at these lower to mid grades. Some books, like, for example, my Hulk 181 is a 6.5. It looks a lot better than some 7s and some 7.5s that I saw. So I actually I reached a little bit for that book because it looked so good. It looked better than a lot of grades higher than that. So, but that is kind of my process. I use this as a starting point, and then depending on my budget, I go one way or the other. So if, say, a 6.5 in this book was out of my price range, like a Giant Size X-Men #1, I think the top grade for that is an 8.0, or I think it's an 8.0. That was out of my price range. So I started working backwards, but I wanted to stay as close to this number as possible. And once again, maybe that doesn't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason or science before it, but to me, it just makes more sense because this is where, you're at the peak of the mountain, and then on the rarity scale, you are getting more rare as you start to slide down the other side. There's going to be fewer and fewer books available in higher grades. I just feel more comfortable sitting on that side from an investment standpoint. And most of the stuff that I'm buying, especially things like this, these Silver Age books, I am viewing them as long-term holds. I'm not buying these to quick flip on a movie announcement. I'm looking to hold these for 5 years, maybe even 10 years, maybe even longer than that. I don't have necessarily an exit strategy on these. These are not quick flips for me, though. They are more long-term holds. So I hope this was helpful. That's kind of my thought process behind choosing the grades. So to review really quickly, anything modern or ultra modern, I want a 9.8, with the exceptional occasion for a 9.6 on something super high-end. Ultimate Fallout 4, maybe a New Mutants 98, ASM 300, just to kind of give a couple different examples there. There's plenty others out there. As you move backwards to that into the mid 80s, I would be more acceptable with lower grades. And then once I get before the mid to late 80s, I will start to apply this method and kind of go from there. I still like to shoot for 9.8 as much as possible, but once you get into that mid 70s and older, the books just get super expensive super fast, and I'm not made of money. So once again, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I hope to kind of do some more videos like this of just kind of like some 101 stuff on the comic book side of things. So smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't. We will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.